Hello and welcome back to Logical Magic, Examining Esoterica. Hey guys, today I have a topic for you about how do your guides really communicate with you? What are guide messages really like? We're all aware of the synchronicity guide messages, such as looking at the clock at 11:11 or 4:44. There's a lot to guide messages, and that is the most simplistic form of it, and it's the least likely to be drawing your attention to something. It's kind of just like something ringing your doorbell to be like, we're here, reach out to us. So before I get started on this topic and about how to increase your guide messages as well, let's go over the housekeeping because I have to put it at the top of it so people listen to it. I'm Elaine. You can find me at therisingmoon.com to book me for a tarot card reading or a life coaching session. The type of tarot that I do helps you look into your inner world to help you resolve your fears, anger, any of the blockages that are holding you back. I also do predictive tarot, but I really believe tarot is a uniquely suited tool to working on your subconscious issues because we all have buried issues that until we resolve them, it's part of our shadow work, hold us back. And so that is part of the work that I do. You can find the video versions of these particular episodes on my YouTube channel, which is Cronecast at the Rising Moon. You don't mean Chromecast, you mean Cronecast at the Rising Moon. And then I have a Patreon where I have weekly readings, I have monthly readings, I'm teaching tarot in reverse. Sometimes I put up special attachment removals and things for the smaller collective where I've done an invocation to try and help people resolve their attachments as well. So that's the housekeeping. Let's get that out of the way and let's get going here. Guide messages. Does everybody have something or someone or a team in essentially the ether trying to help them? Yes. Now, depending on your belief system, it will manifest in different ways. Some people do not believe in a unifying divine force, and that's fine. Everybody's answers come to them as they are meant to, meaning that your form of connection, your form of resonance, your ability to access your higher self will be very individual. And how can different people have different answers without it invalidating other people's answers? Quite simply, reality is giant. More than one thing can be true. What we're reaching for is actually a simplistic explanation that we can understand and accept in this form. And that it's not literal truth in that particular realm, meaning if when we get there, everything looks very different and it's like, oh, I see. As if new colors have been added to the color wheel, we are able to experience life in a more vivid way, but it's not in the same way. And so that's the thing to remember is the spirit realm and the guidance realm are actually separate from ours, and they do have to get inventive, and that sometimes they will try and reach us through stories. If you feel like you're here from somewhere else, your energy may have come here from somewhere else. We do not understand the structure of reality as well as we pretend to in science. We are more advanced than we used to be, but we are still in our infancy in understanding the structure of time, the structure of reality. So if you need a logical explanation, it really is a different form of life trying to communicate with you to try and guide you through this one so that you can get to those higher realms to have that more colorful experience where your color wheel expands by like 3 times, quite frankly, to add more layers to reality, to your understanding. Guide messages are about helping you make the choices from moment to moment that will give you the best outcomes. And that's the thing to remember about spirit guides is they do not control our path. They look at the path that we're on and it's like they're the giant GPS in the sky where they see the best outcomes for us. And so they try to guide us towards what will help us the most with our current set of decisions and with our current set of choices. It's why if you've had a series of bad relationships, or even if you came here and you had an abusive experience as a child or in relationships, your guides aren't doing that to you and the divine isn't doing that to you. And I know it's a really hard concept because it is human nature to ask, why is this happening to me? Because our challenges teach us things. That is why we might choose a challenging path to get in touch with our inner strength, to get in touch with our ability to be guided. Because people who aren't challenged on their path aren't looking for more answers because they think they already have them. So keep in mind that struggles are part of a spiritual journey because it is the actual struggle that has people reaching out for more. So talked a little bit about the synchronicities on the clock, and the reason that that's not one to pay particular attention to and just know it's like they're waving a flag, we're over here, we're over here. If you try and connect to us, we have things for you. We have things for you. But the messages of the 1111, the 444, the repeating numbers, if you see them outside of a clock face, then that's even more significant. So if you're walking around, you look over and there is a license plate with it, is like, does that say 44444? It does. That is your guidance team trying to tell you to find a way to connect. Those small synchronicities that you see in life, whether, some people assign great meaning to feathers. I don't particularly, but that doesn't mean they're not a valid sign for other people. Most repeating signs, which are what we call synchronicities, are an invitation to connect. Now, people have a different reaction to the idea of meditation. You may have something called popcorn brain if you really, really are resistant to the idea of meditating's not for me. I can't do it. I just can't do it. I can't do it. Everybody can meditate. It's just that you have to overcome the tendency to follow the, subconscious thoughts inside of your head. And a lot of people do that by assigning themselves tasks over and over again. And it keeps you always forward moving. To really receive guide messages, you need to be present in the moment to have a clear space within. It's not as challenging as it sounds, and there are different forms of meditation. I will do a follow-up episode because I did an episode on how to meditate when you have anxiety or depression that contains a method, a training wheel method for doing that. Please look for that in my podcast. It will help you develop a meditative practice. But I want you to understand something. If you hear the word meditation and you immediately shut down, you are shutting yourself down to the idea of receptivity and receiving your guidance as you need it. Try to go towards a form of meditation, knowing that it can take the shape and the form that it needs to for you. For many years, my form of meditation was open-eyed meditation as I was lifting weights. I couldn't sit down and meditate and clear my mind. I can now, and by the way, I really like it. So I started out in that stage of like, I can't do this, I can't do this. It's like condemning me to some terribly uncomfortable experience to say, sit down and clear your mind. If you have trouble clearing your mind, you'll have trouble receiving your guide messages. So put some work in on it. Find out about the different focal point meditation. Just simply focusing on your breath with your eyes wide open, sitting in front of a park, looking at all the beauty around you. That is a form of meditation. When you are focusing on what is present in the moment, you are making it a positive experience. You are creating a space within your mind for your guides to be able to communicate with you as they need to. But when you can't do that, they get very inventive. Pay very particular attention to memes that cross your path over and over on social media. They're very good with electronic things. They're super good with electronic things. And to help you understand what guide messages can look like, I'm going to give you a couple of examples in my life. As I have covered before, when I talk, people get readings from me, it's very clear that I'm conversing with something, but I don't actually hear voices. It's a very difficult thing to explain. For me, speaking aloud is a focal tool, and then the information I need is just there. I don't hear it. I don't see things. I don't see things. As a child, I think I did, and I really, really shut down to it. I was a super fearful child. Well, I lived in a really scary household, so I was a fearful child. And because I have a negative relationship to seeing things, I really don't see things. Now, when I'm doing spell work for exorcisms and things, yes, I get a very clear picture of what's going on, but it doesn't feel threatening to me. Your guides will work with your known weaknesses, your known fears. So they will try to reach you in ways that are directly catered to you. And I'm going to give you an example from my own life about what they were trying to tell me from my own path. Because I've been told over and over again, my God, you're going to be successful from multiple different sources. And the thing is that I have problems with compulsivity and overdoing everything. It is the only way in which I can approach myself as an addict is that I'm always ever increasing, even in things that are good for me. I take things to extremes, and I had to learn not to do that. And so whereas I don't, I personally don't drink and I don't do any substances other than cannabis to help me sleep, and that's edibles. It works in a way that helps treat my anxiety and my depression. It's the only thing that I do, and it's actually at a very low dosage level, so it doesn't have any cognitive impairment involved with it. So it's not something I use to connect. Although some people will use different forms of elevating experiences, which are going to be things like mushrooms and pot and ayahuasca. And I don't recommend that for people who have had a history with dissociative issues, where you are basically so traumatized that your brain kind of disconnects. It's almost like an out of body experience. Your guides know you. They know what you've been through. They will only communicate with you in ways that are beneficial for you. But I need you to understand something about meditation. It is creating the space. Think of it as a room that you want to move all new furniture into. And when you're meditating, you're moving all the junk out of it. But the goal is the empty room, not to see what furniture is going to go in there next. So you're creating that empty space for the universe to help you fill, and it will come to you at different points. When you're very advanced, you can get guide messages while meditating. But to begin with, don't expect messages while you're meditating. That is the biggest thing that keeps people from a meditative practice of it just needs to be 5 minutes a day. It's not that intensive. They expect something to happen while they're meditating. And you need to look at it a little bit differently. You are trying to create a neutral space where what you need to know will come to you when you need to know it. Please remember that your guide services are not really on demand. Now, sometimes you can say, I really need a sign because I'm getting discouraged, and something will come to you. But people can overuse that. They can start using guide messages as a crutch, so it won't always play out that way. But your guides know you intimately and well, and they know how to communicate with you, and they know your struggles. So when I started this particular tangent, I was talking a little bit about my tendency to overdo things. It's why I had stopped being a vegan. I have to be more flexible in everything that I do. And because I don't do anything damaging to myself, I stopped thinking of myself as somebody who has OCD, which I do. I have a trauma-based form of OCD. A lot of people with CPTSD or PTSD have that. And I did not think of it applying to healthy things. But as anybody who's been listening to the podcast for a while knows, I love hiking and I love working out and I love all of these things that are very, very active. About last October or so, I developed tendonitis in my left elbow, which is weightlifter's elbow. I know what did it. It took me almost 3 months to pay attention to the sign and eradicate the exercise that was exacerbating the injury. So that's the kind of person I am. I'm so used to pushing through pain that I forgot that you're not actually supposed to push through pain. So that was a chronic injury, and I kept getting these slow down cards, slow down, slow down. I pull cards at the beginning of every day. They're mostly about my clients, but sometimes I kept getting slow down and patience and a bunch of things about needing to heal. And I kept thinking it's about my clients, it's about this, it's about the other thing. As the hiking thing went on, I would, do these trails that were kind of difficult to do. They were very challenging, and that I would push myself that little bit too hard and be too tired afterwards. And I started to make the connection that, I'm overdoing it. In the background, I kept getting a card for an elephant. Now, they all carry different meanings. All the cards have different markers on them, but your cards will develop a particular relationship to you, and so will your guide messages. And I kept seeing a meme from the movie Dumbo, right? This is how inventive guides can get with you. Dumbo is not what you would normally associate with the idea of a spirit guide message. Pardon me, I have to plug in my mouse to get it charging again. But it's a movie I've only ever seen once because it's so sad. Let's face it, Dumbo as a movie is just heart-crushingly sad. And so I've seen it once as a child. I've never gone back to it because it depressed the heck out of me. I kept seeing a meme that had Dumbo crying with his cute little circus hat on, saying, "Please be careful with me. I get sad sometimes and I don't know why." And I kept seeing it to the point of I'd see it on Board Panda. I'd see it on any of the aggregated sites that I go to. I kept running across it in the weirdest set of circumstances until finally I understood that my guides were trying to say, please be careful with yourself. You're taking too many risks. And I didn't get it and I didn't get it. And the thing that finally got it was I was doing a draw at the beginning of the day. The messages of love oracles were like, warning, don't ignore the red flags, support, wait, not the right time. And I was like, what in the world could that be? Because it was my wrap-up draw at the end of the day, which tells me whether or not I have attachments and what I have to do to get rid of them sometimes. I have a very close relationship with my cards. And as I started to go for my after work walk, which I do which I haven't been doing since I discovered this, I had hurt something in my foot and I didn't realize it. I had done in that day's workout 30 one-legged deadlifts. On a bad side, I have surgically reconstructed heel, and I didn't think I injured myself, even though I know better than to do sets of 30 of anything. I was just pushing that little bit too hard because I like weightlifting and I like increasing things. I teach it, I treat everything in my life as a contest with myself. I wasn't aware I was doing this until this happened. And I got maybe a block away from my home. I was like, wow, the top of my foot really hurts. And I'm used to walking off pain. I have a bunch of permanent injuries and just, spoiler alert, had a bunch of different things that it's like I have not been able to concentrate on being in pain. I've had to move forward. And I went a little bit further and it got worse. And finally, it started clicking. How many times have I seen be careful with me? How many times have I seen slow down? And I literally just got a series of cards that told me, be careful, don't ignore the warning signs, support. And I finally turned around, I came home. It took 2 weeks for that injury to heal. They finally just basically, I injured myself badly enough that I was not able to do anything that I like to do for 2 weeks. That was the hardest 2 weeks for me, was sitting around and just being like, I have to let this heal. Is my elbow much better? It is actually much better. I also got cards about icing it. So for me, my guide messages come through cards quite frequently. But if you're not doing that, pay attention to the other part that I was talking about. If you keep seeing something, ask yourself why. Because it's not a coincidence. Anything that repeats and tries to get your attention, that's a guide message, including it can be relationships that you have with people. Realistically, we have normalized dishonesty in our interactions in this community, in this world, in this westernized world, where, how's your day going? You don't really expect somebody to answer in detail. It's just a polite nicety, but it's also not a very honest or authentic form of communication, which we have normalized. So what that can happen with that is because we've desensitized ourselves to the idea that people will have only authentic interactions, we've normalized lying. And so in some relationships, if you keep catching somebody contradicting themselves, first of all, don't assume bad intent. Everybody has their own stuff. Sometimes it's fear, sometimes it's anxiety, sometimes it's a poor coping mechanism that was developed. But if you keep catching somebody telling a white lie in something, it's trying to warn you about whether or not you should invest in that relationship. Because regardless of why the person is doing it, and again, I'm begging you, don't assume poor motives with people, because quite frequently they're simply not there. They're simply not there. People are coping with their own stuff. Every single person that you meet will be coping with their own stuff. But it is trying to draw your focus to, that's trying to tell me something about how much I should invest in this person. That person is still doing work. It's not that they're a bad person, they're duplicitous. Please try not to judge other people. They're going through their own crap. If you do not wish to be judged for the stuff that is within you, try very hard not to judge other people, because they're just coming from their own particular point of view. And most of the time, people are doing the best that they can do. Most of the time, not always. It's a complicated world. So anything that you notice in a repetition in a behavior of another person and something crossing your path can be a guide message. We need to talk a little bit about how our guides work with our sleep world, because it can be very difficult for people. If you keep having bad dreams, don't think that they're prophetic. That is the first thing to remember, is that any type of prophetic anything is very, very neutral in its emotional impact. You'll just know. You will just know. And it won't have this great big emotional upsurge with it because it's information. So if you're having prophetic dreams where you have almost no real reaction to what has been revealed, that's a guide message. If you're having nightmares where you can't make a noise because you're trying to scream and no noise is coming out, that's one I hear constantly. If you are always losing your money, these are not prophetic dreams. It is your guides working with what is within your subconscious. Your subconscious mind tries to help you work on your shadow issues, the things that hold us back, the negative or the darker energies that we need to understand with logic, but then also making room for listen, don't shame yourself out of your emotions. Embrace them, be kind to them, and know that they will pass. But talk yourself out of the illogical fears, out of the illogical anger. Don't try to repress your emotions. Try to coexist with them so that you learn to take care of them. The thing that I teach my clients is when you're having a negative emotion is to keep telling yourself it's just an emotion. It will pass. Because that is true. If you look at the history that you've had with things go up, things go down, everything will pass. Every emotions that you have will pass. So try and figure out what it's trying to draw your attention to, because your guides can work with inspiring emotional reactions within you to get you to take a look at something. Now, one of the things that I'll share another example of what happened with my life after they finally Dumboed me into like, girl, sit down and rest sometimes. It's not evil. And if you don't do it, eventually you will break. You are not indestructible. We protect you as much as we can. But if you're going to literally run up and down mountains, sometimes a rock's going to fall on you because we can't be that hyper present in anybody's life. So they got through to me on that. And I have a much more sane approach for the time being. I have to always be hyper vigilant with myself on that type of stuff because I'm prone to OCD. They got through to me on, take a sane pace, that like you're honor the vessel that contains your soul, and don't think the vessel is indestructible just because you're a very protected person, is what they were trying to tell me. That I have to take responsibility for my own well-being in not overextending myself that way. That was the message on that. One of the other messages was dealing with an old fear. And this is an area that I don't talk about a great deal, was how badly I was bullied. I was badly bullied. Now, I'm really different, and that was what led into it, but I was also placed in an academically talented class. So I went through like the first 10 years with the same 10 people. And I, of course, was the one they picked on. So I was really badly bullied. I forgive all the people who bullied me. They were all just kind of in their own developmental stages. And I know what happened to the person who was the worst bully in my life. And they did not end up with a particularly interesting life, and I did. So it's kind of like, well, it all came out in the wash, didn't it? But the other day, as somebody was challenging me on something because they were trying to push past their appointment time, they just had one more question. I had to say no and leave because I had somebody waiting for their appointment. It's not fair to the person who's waiting. It's also not fair to me to overextend time if it's like you've paid for a certain amount. Listen, this is draining for me. I'm sorry, but I got to go. It stirred up a fear in me, and I was worried about what it would mean. And I was like, why am I so afraid? Why am I so afraid? Why am I so afraid? It's because when anybody starts pushing boundaries with me, it bumps into that I was so badly bullied, I didn't speak for a year. I literally quit talking. That's something that when I interact with other people, if I feel fear of other people, it taps into that old energy. And the way to get rid of it is just to confront it. It's like, yeah, that's from then. That's not now. That's another way guides communicate with you, is pay attention to your reactions, not for letting it guide how you will act in the moments afterwards. When you have an emotion, an intense emotion, ask yourself, remember, it's just an emotion, it will pass. And then ask yourself, what's it trying to tell me about what I need to heal, what I need to talk myself through? And for me, whenever I have to say no to somebody and set a boundary, it is very difficult for me because it doesn't any longer, but it could, and it did for a while, bump into that natural tendency to withdraw from people because of how badly I was bullied as a kid. Remember, the things that go into forming your emotional response system, it doesn't matter how far away from childhood you are. That went into your emotional response system. You have to deprogram yourself from your emotional response system in your formative experience. And your guides are trying to help you with that, with your reactions to other people and what you dream about. Your dreams are the most likely thing to tell you what you still need to heal. Whether it's about old partners, you haven't let go of the relationship yet, there's still something to be resolved in how it left you feeling. Relationships that don't work out have everybody questioning about, like, either they throw entirely on the other person. Usually there's a role we played. And remember what I said at the very top of this is our guides are stuck in the position of working with our choices, not dictating them. They try to tell us what we can do next to get the best possible outcome. If you are psychic, a lot of people who follow me are psychic. Remember, you are on a need to know basis. What you need to know will come to you when you need to know it, and that we clog up our pipes by asking and asking and asking sometimes. It's appropriate to get a couple of readings a year, sometimes as many as 4, depending on what you're going through. But anything more than that, you're trying to assuage your fears with getting a picture of what's coming up. And that's what you would look at as healing your fear. If you're one of those people who watches, YouTube reading after YouTube reading after YouTube reading, start asking yourself, what am I supposed to be healing? Because we're not supposed to live in this focused energy. We're supposed to live in an energy that is receptive and allows us to determine our healthy focus. Our healthy focus. And healthy focus is what learning meditation is about. It creates the space for guide messages, but it also gives us the ability to have healthy focus. So guides will talk to you through repeating bad dreams. And not everything that comes from your guides is going to make you feel hugged. It's not. It's going to be shining a flashlight on that next, that next, that next. And how can free will and fate still coexist? It's simple. It's in that more than one thing can be true at once. There may be 6 fateful things in your life path. It can be a partner, it can be a life's purpose, it can be a crossroads moment where you definitively decide what you are going to pursue, because we can turn down our life's purpose. We'll have to come back and do it again. Like that's the only thing to be aware of. And how do people come back? There's a lot of different theories on that. Some people think you repeat the same life because of the many worlds theories, that it's like, well, you didn't get it right this time, so we're going to take you back to the beginning of this, and you get another opportunity to live it all the way through with making better and healthier choices. So your guides can help you with your purpose, but if there's only this handful of fateful occurrences that the universe will bring to us in divine timing. Remember, divine timing does not exist on a clock, and it does not exist on a calendar. It exists in a state of energetic readiness. And you have to remember that there are sophisticated energetic forces on the other side of this entire equation, and that they will bring you what you need to when you need to. We want a super simplistic, that makes sense explanation for absolutely everything. We lack basic building blocks of that understanding, in that we do not understand the full structure of reality or life, or what it is capable of, or whether or not alternate timelines exist, which scientists believe they are. I think it was Stephen Hawking who was actually talking about that. In like the 10 days before he died, he wrote something about basically what boiled down to the many worlds theory, which is that there are alternative universes. We do not understand the structure of reality yet. We have the basics of it. If you want to look at science as like somebody going all the way from primary education through advanced education, we're maybe in about the 5th grade or year 5, depending on where you're from and how you would term that. We're about a 10-year-old's level for our scientific understanding, but my goodness, we are trying. So if we don't do what we're meant to in this lifetime, there are different ways for it to come back to us. And can you opt out? I don't honestly know. I don't honestly know. I think that there has to be room for that. I think there has to be room for that. A lot of people who listen to me have had difficult life experiences, and it's really difficult to believe, I did not choose this, I did not choose this, I did not choose this. Your ego is the part of you that invests solely in how much something hurt. Your pain does matter, but they're always trying to give you the information about how to heal it. That's what guide messages are for. And people get caught in a bad period in healing in which blame of the divine, blame of circumstances, blame of how unfair it is. This is not a fair world. This world is not about being fair. But everybody gets a chance to have a feeling experience. And if you only invest in the negative impact of something, you miss the lesson. Like with something tapping into old bullying, I was able to resolve it. It's not something I fear any longer. But when I first started interacting with people and their approval was on the other side of it, it was difficult for me. Now that's about like 4 years in the rearview mirror in terms of how much impact it has on me. But once you start trying to figure out what your emotions are trying to tell you, because intense emotions always indicate something that is unhealed, please remember it's also your guides there. That is the time to reach out for serenity, for calmness, for focusing on your breath, to bring down the emotional response so that you can start asking you, what am I really feeling here? Why am I really feeling it? And when you start understanding that, then you have some information on how to best deal with it, learn your lessons, make the progress that you need to so that they can prepare you for the fulfillment of your life's purpose. And life's purpose, finding your purpose in this, and please listen to me. Your life's purpose is not a profession. It can be. You can end up working in your life's purpose, but some people, their life's purpose was to be a great mom to 5 people. Honest to goodness, your life's purpose is individual, and it may or may not pay, but it is about making your life experience here a resonant, expansive experience in which you feel connected to the universe around you and those around you as well. So that's what life's purpose is. It makes things make sense even when they're not necessarily fair. My experience growing up and some of the other things that happened within my life taught me a lot about what it's like to try and struggle past injury and past infirmity and past unfair circumstances, and to continue to find a reason to experience this life joyfully. That is, no matter what happens in your life, you can still experience moment to moment joyfully. It's not about having what you want. It's about appreciating what is around you. And that's what your guides can help you with as well. Whenever you see repeating anything, stop, assess the moment for what is good, and try to allow yourself to be receptive to the idea that something is trying to guide me here. I'm going to make space for it and I'm going to try and listen to it. Readings play a place in this. Is that you have to go towards somebody, people can only heal at the level that they are healed. And so it's important, if you don't click with a reader, that's fine. I've had people come to me who they're perfectly delightful people. It has nothing to do with good or bad. It's just we weren't from the same collective. We don't communicate in quite the same way. Find the person who can help you as well, because we sometimes all need an exterior view on things to have clarity, to have new things to consider. So remember, that's the other way that your guides will talk to you. It doesn't have to be a reader. It doesn't have to be a therapist. It doesn't have to be a teacher. Your guides will communicate with you in what they urge other people to say around you. They communicate with you through other people all the time. And sometimes it isn't for a point. It's just to be like, we know you think you're alone. You're not alone. It's hard to get through to you in this reality because it's a very limited and conflicted reality. And we inhabit a form of life that reliably throughout history turns on itself and begins destroying itself when we reach a particular level of technology or a level of resource deprivation or challenge. Is that we do hideous things to each other. We are a conflicted form of life. They are not. Your guides are a form of life. Some of them have been human, some of them haven't. Now, I'm always talking about angels, and when you work with angels, you'll be able to tell because they're a really, 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 really powerful energy and they will get it done. But they're not like touchy-feely, huggy things. They're like the commandos of the energetic universe. They're there to get a job done, and they will get it done expediently. Your guides are more about your emotions and trying to help you tend your happiness as well, but keeping it in balance with your purpose, keeping it in balance with your struggles, because we learn through our struggles, and keeping it in balance with the idea of understanding whatever pain you may be experiencing as a temporary state of being. And once you learn that pain is a temporary state of being, it leaves you so much more easily because you are treating everything in your life as transient. And that does not mean you value the things that come to you less. It means you value them more. Because there is no part of you that is investing in the idea of, I have to hold on to this forever, because everything changes over the course of time. Even if something remains by your side, what it is changes over the course of that time. Everything changes. Make change a friend, and you will also receive more guidance from the guides around you, from the repeating songs, from the commercials that cross your path over and over and over again. And again, the memes and things. Don't look to the world of politics, by the way. Politics is a very, very corrupt structure, no matter which party you're interacting from. Again, that thing I was talking about at the very beginning, where we have just normalized dishonesty to the 100th power in politics. It's a very corrupt structure right now. And, one party's message appeals to me more than another party's, but I'm very, very aware that the one with the more appealing message doesn't get much stuff done either. That I don't invest a lot of my personal energy in anything having to do with what amounts to an arm wrestling over who's got the power now issue within our governmental structures. And that applies to literally every country on the face of the earth at this particular point. Don't invest your personal energy too much in politics. Do what you can, have your voice, have your vote, but don't find your identity there, because you're seeking it from a corrupt structure that is seeking more power, which is not about healing people, which is not about having a purpose. When your only purpose is power, it will be a very corrupt thing, because of that flawed structure that I was talking about with our human structure, where we're very conflicted. We have trouble overcoming our darker sides and finding our best side, which will guide us towards greater happiness and joy in the moment to moment. Guide messages are interesting because sometimes they really are trying to draw your attention to things that are reasonably considered false. Because as much as I joke around about like, hey, I do too much with going up and down mountains and lifting weights and doing some other things where I overcommit to things. And by the way they handled that thing and the way I was able to understand it is almost as soon as it got to rattlesnake season, I started to be like, I have to hike at the beginning of the day because of the sun factor and because I don't do super well in heat. I started to draw back anyway. I'm like, I'm going to need to find a new form of flowing movement or of cardio to get through the summer months. I'm not going to be able to hike much in the summer because like I said, the time of the day that I could hike is the time of the day that there are a ton of rattlesnakes. I had one day where every time I turned around, there was a rattlesnake, and you're not supposed to throw rocks at them. You're supposed to stomp. And again, I always think of like people, if anybody's filming this, I just look like such a prime lunatic because there I was hopping up and down in my hiking boots, trying to get enough vibrations going towards the rattlesnake to get it to move out of my path. And it did, it worked. It worked. But that was one too many rattlesnakes for me that particular day. And so I chose something different. And I understood that I'm a 3-season hiker. I can't hike much during the summer. So they set limitations that way. If you're getting blocked on things, your guides are trying to communicate with you. If you're getting blocked on things, your guides are trying to communicate with you. If you are getting readings, particularly about relationships that never see fruition, that is a sign that you are trying to control the messages coming to you to make it fit a particular shape and form. And the whole thing with guide messages is you have to be receptive. And when I say you have to, you never have to do a darn thing. But this is the nature of guide messages. The nature of guide messages is that what we focus on is not necessarily, because it's ego driven, is not necessarily in service of our highest good. And one of the things that meditation does is it helps us unite with the part of ourselves, because that's what it is. That's still part of you that's outside the flow of time, is unconcerned with what do we need to do? What do we need to do? Because they're like, this is how it's going to turn out. Just keep making these decisions. That'll turn out. I know what I'm doing up here. That your higher self is a very calm being. And that's another way to connect is through a form of simply focused breathing. If you don't like the term meditation, put it on a shelf and just you're doing breathing exercises. You're bringing in more of the element of air, which is the communication element. And that in and of itself will expand your ability to receive guide messages, and stop thinking it will come to you in a spiritual setting and start looking at the 3D for what messages are coming to me. And again, the thing that I have to stress is that the one that people invest in so much, 222, 444, 1111, is not really trying to give you information as much as they're saying, over here, or can you connect with us? We're over here. They keep trying to tell us how to get to them so that they can give us, this is the roadmap from where you are right now. If you take a right at the next, instead it's if you go to that job interview, just try to be relaxed. It's also the thing of being able to access the energy that you want to access. Connecting with your guides, connecting with your higher self, and connecting with your ability to breathe, which is again, the communication element, are all of the things that will bring more guidance towards you. Now, there's a part of me that wants to go, hey, if you don't believe in any of this, because all beliefs are valid for that individual. We have an individual experience. It is catered to our individuality. If somebody else has something going on and it seems completely foreign to you, it's because it is. They're here having a different experience. I'm always talking about people who are here to have a hedonistic experience where they're just here to party, have fun, have a bunch of sex, have a really good time. It's their lifetime to do that. We need all of these elements in reality to try and kind of hold it together. Don't judge another person's path, even if it's different than yours. Just accept that it's like, that's their path. That's their path. And people are different stages of their path as well. In a healing journey, it is very, very natural to get stuck in the why phase. Why me? Why? Unfair. Completely normal. If you get stuck there, you get stuck in a series of like self-pitying emotions that it doesn't allow you to see the path forward. You're just focused on the pain instead of how do I heal the wound that caused the pain? And it's that simple. If you keep asking why, understand that there is literally no answer to that other than it is a chaotic reality in a lot of ways, and super good people can have super challenging circumstances. And it isn't a judgment of your worth. But there is a part of you that before you were ever born, before you were in this corporeal form, understood the challenges you would be facing and said, I can do this. It can become more difficult because the only thing about that incorporeal realm that is always trying to interact with us is that they don't understand physical and emotional pain at the same level any longer because they don't feel it in the same way. It's why people might sign up to come back here over and over again, even though it is a challenging experience, because feeling is so acute. But they don't understand that acute nature. And sometimes you really have to be like, hey, listen, you can set an intention when you sit down to meditate. Bring me the information I need to heal is the best intention to start with. When you sit down, and even if you're focusing in for start with 10 breaths, even if you're just doing that, you're asking for the information you need to heal to be brought to you. Because the first thing that we have to do is clear our wounds out of the way. But your guides have trouble understanding when too much pain is too much pain. And you do have to let them know, hey, listen, ow, it's hurting too much. I need something, and it will slow down your journey sometimes. Sometimes when you have to heal a lot of pain, you will have a very slow progress on your journey, and accept that as part of life. We are overinvested in hurry, 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 get to the good thing, get to the good thing, get to the good thing. Everything has, every single moment of your day, every single moment of your life has something good in it if you will but focus on it. Even when things are horrible, there is something beautiful in this world, even if it's just the sun reflecting off of a puddle. It is an amazing and beautiful world where it is, if we look at the world with wonder, we will see more wonder. If we look at the world with why does everything suck, all you're going to see is everything sucking. You have so much control in where your focus goes. And where your focus goes is if you're struggling, that's when you need to ask your guides to communicate with you more and understand that you won't want some of the messages. Sometimes they're going to be like, that's not for you, that's not for you, that's not for you. You have this form of attachment, you need to heal that. And it'll be like, oh my God, this chore list. But once you accomplish the chore list, then you start feeling the happiness, the joy, and the connection. So guide messages, they're not just about knowing what we want to know. They're about knowing what we need to know. And what we need to know always starts with, what do I need to heal? And if you are in some form of pain, the first thing to embrace is it's not saying you don't matter when you say it's not a personal judgment. That is not what the divine is trying to convey. It is just, sadly, in order to be able to feel this full spectrum experience, you got more of the harsh stuff to start so that you could heal and then really experience the good stuff. If you were badly wounded by your experience, then a lot of energy going into healing it can then give you a beautiful view of everything going forward. And your life stops being defined by the pain and the accidents and the injury and the abuse when you resolve that pain. When you accept your life as being what it is meant to be, even if it's challenging, even if it's hard. Every now and then I will get emails, I will get messages from people who they've been in so much pain their whole life. And then they listen to something that I did. And remember, I don't take credit for this. This is something speaking through me. So this is not an ego thing. It just helps me understand, oh, that's why. And they will have found a way to alleviate lifelong pain because of something I said or something I shared through what I'm attached to. And in those moments, I can feel the, yeah, okay, so I had to go through some crap in order to be able to do that for another person. But that makes sense with who I know myself to be. That being of service to others is one of the most healing things that you can do because it gets you out of all I can see is the pain. That's what reaching out and doing for others does. That's what being of service does, is it draws your focus away from the, oh, 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 of it all. That comes with being a feeling being. It comes with having sensation. And when you stop just concentrating on the pain, now, like I said, you're never supposed to push through pain, but you're supposed to have it in a balanced state. The reason you're not supposed to push through pain, pain is trying to tell you something. It's trying to tell you about a caution. It's trying to tell you about a limit. It's trying to tell you about a wound that needs to be healed. But that does not mean you're supposed to sit in the pain. You're supposed to say, what am I supposed to do about this pain? Because realistically, we are all first our own healers. And your guides are there to give you the prescriptions and the remedies for whatever ails you. And the way to start reaching out is to look at your life for repeating signals, look at your life for People telling you the same thing over and over again. They're not lying to you, they're trying to help you. And we're very resistant to messages that aren't about making it easier. Your guides aren't here to make it easier as much as they are to make it better. And there is a distinction there that you need to appreciate. Easier is not necessarily better. Easier is medicating away a pain and being in a state of numbness. That's easier. Better is looking at the wound, understanding it, and healing it. So there might be some scar tissue there in your psyche, but you understand when something bumps into it that it's like it's bumping into that, but it's not that. So I hope this was helpful for you about guide messages and how our guides communicate with us. Take care, be well. If you need to find me, you can find me at therisingmoon.com to book me for a tarot card reading, a life coaching session. There is a link to my Patreon in the description box or in the episode notes below. Keep reaching for your guidance. Keep reaching for your guidance and know that you will get homework, things that you're being asked to reach out towards. I don't spoon feed people a lot of information about the basics of magic because that's your job. If you want more power, prove you're worthy of it, not by being spoon fed it, by reaching out to it and being like, I am making my own meal here. That is what the acquisition of knowledge does for you, is it expands your consciousness. And when you expand your consciousness through learning, you will also expand your ability to be receptive to guides as well. There's always a workaround for things, but if you hear absolutely nothing from me other than, listen, if you have a negative reaction to the idea of meditation, you just don't know how to do it yet. But there is a way for you because there is a way for everybody. Take care, be well, live magically. This has been Logical Magic, Examining Esoterica. I lost the connection on my mouse, but luckily it is back. I will see you guys next time.